Hello, class. Welcome. Chapter 30 of 30. Yes, many, many hours of lecturing. And finally, to the last chapter in the book, looking at nutritional disorders. So let's get right at it. Indeed. All right. So nutrition. We are not plants, so we cannot make our own food. We need to steal it from plants and other animals that ate plants, right? So you can tell plants are the ones, and algae are at the base of the food chain for us. First of all, what do we need these nutrients for? Well, we need nutrients. We're going to see macronutrients and micronutrients to use as fuel, to burn as fuel. And then we need the raw materials for repair, building ourselves. So those are the two things really we're doing with what we're taking in our body there. Indeed, and if you are in fact pregnant or nursing, you need more nutrients to accomplish that. And when we look at nutrition here, the important thing is there's going to be essential nutrients, essential amino acids. That means we can't make it ourselves. We have to get it from the environment. The other like amino acids that are not essential, we need, but we have the ability to modify molecules and make those ourselves. But something like vitamin C, it's necessary. If we don't have it, we start showing symptoms of deficiency of that vitamin. Yep, we are omnivores. Yes, look at those canine teeth there. We eat plants and animals, and I'll show you we can survive on a wide variety of diets. You think about humans around the world and how different their diets are. But basically a variety. If you eat a normal diet, that you mix things up, eat your vegetables and fruits, you do not need supplemental vitamins. You will get everything that you need. It's just that when you get unusual diets, or you just eat one thing, then you're gonna, it's not immediate, but you're gonna show deficiencies over time because you're gonna be needing something, you're not gonna be able to have it. Now, nutrition varies depending on age, sex, and how active you are. If you just sit on the couch, you need a lot less calories than if you are a long-distance runner, right? And you'll see people eating this high-calorie, runners eat those things. They're just like pure fat, protein. They need that because they're burning those calories, definitely. And like I say, pregnancy, lactation, you need to up your calories and make sure you're getting everything you need. Here's a school lunch, and yeah, you guys realize this is like an American school lunch because I see chicken tenders, no, chicken nuggets, yeah, nuggets there. And you see calorie-rich things like cookies filled with fat and carbohydrates. Carbs are the starch in this mashed potato. I bet there's a little fat of butter in there. In this one, in the peas, you're getting some vitamins and carbs also, and some protein. But you're also going to be eating cellulose, which is what the pea is made out of, like the toughness, and that's really fiber for us. Our colon bacteria can digest it, but we can't. Yeah, and then fruits, a lot of water, a lot of sugars, and some vitamins too, probably. And as you can see, if you lived in Italy, look at that. It's not just pasta, but it's going to be, indeed, I see the grapes. I see some, don't know what that is, breaded fish, something like that. The Ukraine, we're looking at root vegetables and sausages there, cabbage. Yeah, Finland. Yeah, beets. You may get fish and things. So what I'm saying is think about the diet of people. A lot of people in Southeast Asia, based on rice-based diets. Us is more of a wheat-based diet. If you're living in the Arctic, you're not getting a lot of vegetables. You're getting a lot of meats. A lot very fatty meal. If you live in the tropics, you're getting a much bigger diversity, probably, of vegetables and fruits. And so we can survive on many different diets out there. And there are people that are vegetarians or vegans. You gotta be careful because you can be missing some essential things, and people that are on the Atkins diet and no carbs at all. All right, so there are dietary guidelines. Used to be a food pyramid. Now it's got a plate in different sections, easier to picture your plate. Instead of being, 90% meat and 10% potatoes, you're supposed to have half fruit and vegetables and, meat that, small amounts. So anyway, there's guidelines that are done for recommended diet to keep a human healthy and to maintain your ideal weight. And we'll talk about that, obesity and undernutrition. And it's going to be a scale where it's going to be calories in, calories out. And so you have too many calories in and not enough exercise, you're going to gain weight. If you have too much exercise and not enough calories, you're going to lose weight. Generally, that's what it boils down to. But you want to eat a variety of foods to get all the vitamins and minerals that you need. Fiber is something that you can't digest, but it's important in our digestive tract to keep things moving along. It'll help you actually get rid of cholesterol. Prevent colon cancer, we believe, so it keeps the feces moving instead of like stuck on the walls in there. And for a good diet, you want to avoid excess sugar, salts, and alcohol. Moderation is the key. So our energy is based on our calories. And a calorie, this is actually a kilocalorie, but in food world, we use calorie. And it's the amount of energy it takes to warm up. It used to be 1 milliliter of water, 1 degree. And here we're talking about calorie, 1,000 calories, 1 degree. And we can not easily, but we can figure out the calorie content of any kind of food by putting in this bomb calorimeter. And you put the sample of food here, it's got electrical wires, and then you burn it up completely. All that released energy will heat up the water that it's in, this big insulated tub. And you can measure with an accurate thermometer how much it went up. So you knew the weight of the food going in, the change in the temperature of the water and the volume of the water, and you can kind of calculate how many calories are in that. Indeed. And so that's what we burn. We don't burn it like in a fire quickly. We burn it slowly through our cellular metabolism, and we capture that energy in our ATP. Yeah, and you're going to see carbs are really, sugars and starches are where we get our energy generally. We'll see proteins. You can get energy from proteins too, but we use those amino acids to build things, make antibodies, build skin, hair, right? And then lipids are fats, and those give us twice as many calories per gram, and we use it to store energy, also as cushioning and insulation under our skin or under our eye sockets, places like that. So again, carbs are, you think about pasta and breads and sugar, all these things are forms of carbohydrates, yeah. And when it comes down to it, what do our cells really use? They like to use glucose. Again, we talked about diabetes, and you can't get glucose in cells, so you can burn some fatty acid chains, and we can. So normally we make our glucose from carbs. We take in starches and then we break it down. We store it as glycogen in our muscles and liver, but we can also make glucose from proteins called gluconeogenesis. And so you can eat a pure protein diet and get glucose from that too, right? Yeah. And again, fiber is the bulk in our diet that we can't digest. So cellulose happens to be one polysaccharide. It's a type of sugar, but we just don't have the enzymes to break it apart, its structure. Starch is a different thing. Plants use that to store energy. Cellulose they use to make structure, and we can't break that down personally, but we have bacteria and protozoans in our gut that can. Another thing is chitin. Chitin's another polysaccharide type of sugar that's on our lobster shells and all our bugs and shrimp, and we also can't digest that. But we digest sugars. Glycogen is the meat starch, if you will, and then plant starch, like a potato has starch. And both those are polysaccharides, huge chain of the glucose for us. And then proteins. Proteins are the most interesting of these macromolecules. Our bodies, our genes code to make, thousands and thousands of proteins, every enzyme and hair and skin and muscle. Yeah. And so we need to get proteins in order to make it, those 20 amino acids that we can absorb in our bloodstream, and then we can make what we want to make with them. Yeah. So life is made of 20 amino acids. And complete proteins are meat and eggs and soybeans, I believe, have all the amino acids. They're complete nutrition. But if you're a vegetarian or vegan, you gotta be careful, because if you're not eating meat, you're eating vegetables, um, they often are incomplete proteins, which means they have some of the amino acids, but not all of them. And you need all of them. So if you're a vegetarian, you just want to have a varied diet. And corn and beans together are a complete diet. Corn by itself is not. Beans by itself is not. Yeah. And then lipids. Lipids are fats, including the cholesterol that is the backbone for our sterile hormones like estrogen. And in our cell membranes, we have cholesterol, and our cell membranes are made of phospholipids, right? And again, we insulate, we store energy as fat. It's a good way to store it because, pound for pound, it holds the most calories. Yeah. Our myelin sheath is mostly lipids. Yeah. So looking at a cell membrane, you see the lipids being the phospholipids and the cholesterol in there too. And then we see sugars in these glycoproteins. The glyco is the sugar part that comes out. And then the proteins are the really interesting parts, the transporters and the other things that float around in that membrane. Now, vitamins and minerals are needed in small amounts, but you need them. And if you're missing one, you will have a deficiency. And what's vitamins to us humans is different than your dog and your cat. Just to point that out, that we need vitamin C in our diet, but your cat doesn't. They can get vitamin C. Yeah, and then minerals generally come from the earth, but plants will take those minerals and will eat the plants and get them. For an example is iron. Iron's a mineral that we need in our hemoglobin. You need cobalt for vitamin B12. That's a weird one. And we need iodine, of course, for thyroid hormones. So these are minerals that without them, you will have mineral deficiency and you'll start showing symptoms. So whenever you see essential amino acid and essential vitamins, these are things that are essentially that you have to eat them, all right? You've got all kinds of other chemicals you need, but essential means you got to get them from your diet. You can't make them inside your own body, yeah. So 9 amino acids out of the 20 are essential. The others we can make. There's a couple essential lipids, oils, linoleic, I don't know. And then vitamins and minerals, the ones that are listed are the ones that we need, right, to have a complete diet. There's no essential carbs. Again, they're providing the energy. Yeah, take a look. So these are the amino acids. You certainly don't have to memorize that for me. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, linoleic acid is the fatty acid. I knew that was in there, definitely. Yeah, and the major minerals, things like sodium, potassium, calcium, right, magnesium. Yeah, indeed. And then some other minerals like iron is necessary, right? Or you're anemic, but you need less of it, just a small amount, just in our hemoglobin. We recycle most of it, but we need some. Yeah, definitely. All these things, even selenium. These are the weird ones, are usually a part of some kind of enzyme or in the electron transport chain, some kind of protein needs this weird one. Yeah, and our vitamins. And again, I'm not going to test you on this, but your fat soluble ones, A, D, E, and K, and then water soluble ones. All right, so our food choices. Think about that. In some cases, it's less of a choice. I guess if you're an astronaut, you just eat whatever's in that tube. But in many cases, if you're in poverty and such, you say, why you should eat a better diet. Well, notice how much fresh fruit costs compared to Cheetos, or not the name brand, but things like that. And if you live in the inner city, what kind of is there a farmer's market? Is it what's your instead of having a store with a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, you may just have a convenience store where you get your groceries, things like that. So poverty plays a difference in where your food, what kind of food and diet you can have. It's not completely a choice, and you can't look down at people because they're not eating enough fruits and vegetables. It could be economic and other issues that prevent that. Indeed. So mental health can make a big difference too. And really, these food choices, and we look at obesity and such, a lot of that comes from the way you were brought up and what food means to you, what eating means to you. Is it Do you come from a social situation and family where you don't eat for fun and you don't eat to eat your feelings, things like that? Is it all your social interactions revolving around eating large quantities of food? And kids are brought up in those environments, and then that's what they carry on into the further generations. Yeah. So obesity. So okay, major problems. All right, we'll start with obesity, and then I'll end the lecture talking about that. But of course, it causes all kinds of health issues, diabetes and high blood pressure. All these things come under obesity is a major risk factor, and I'll talk about how much it's increasing. But it's defined as a BMI over 30. I'll show you a chart of that. And like smoking, you can directly relate it to hypertension, diabetes, a whole bunch of things. On the other hand, undernutrition. All right, and you can have primary undernutrition. That means you have a lack of nutrition. You're out of food, really. Secondary is undernutrition is because of a disease condition. So you're undernourished because you're suffering from a disease that is causing it. It's not like a choice, really. And when you hear malnutrition, that covers both obesity and undernutrition. It just means bad nutrition, either over calories or under calories. And then it could be, even if you have proper calories, it could be a lack of essential minerals and vitamins, things like that too. Vitamin mineral excesses and deficiencies, definitely. Deficiencies will show up. This guy is a little scary, has scurvy, so he doesn't get enough vitamin C, and it causes your teeth to fall out and your skin to go bad, things like that. And excesses, especially a problem today. People think, oh, more is better, and you get easy access to all these vitamins, and you're on weird diets, and so you can have excesses that cause symptoms as well. And when we have a normal diet here in the U.S., really we worry about iron and iodine. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I'm going to say this differently. I mean, iron is definitely a deficiency here. Iodine around the world can be a deficiency. We put it in salt, but these things are going to involve thyroid hormones and hemoglobin. So I guess those two, you don't look at selenium or chromium as causing, big deficiencies worldwide, but you see iron and iodine. Without them, you show symptoms, anemia and hypothyroidism. Yeah, but generally manageable, these vitamin issues. And if you take supplements, of course, you can fix any vitamin issue. All right, excessive alcohol consumption. We look at serious problems. Yeah, it's a huge factor for disease and disability and cause of death and morbidity. So you'll see if you drink, if you're an alcoholic, you can see get most of your calories are from alcohol. And so you have all kinds of issues. And then other health issues follow as well. And then you look at contaminated food and water. When you have to eat your food, but you're at a risk of getting a hepatitis or typhoid, things like that. So, yeah. All right, symptoms, signs, and tests. Here we go. So usually at the time of you walk in, you can look at a person and see if they're severely undernourished or overnourished, right? So you got that going for you right there. It's not hidden. And then you can look a little further to see what's going on. And if there's vitamin deficiencies, you may look at skin and the hair might be issues, and they may give you symptoms that they're having. And yeah, you can order some labs if you suspect. When you talk about their diet and you see, is it something unusual outside of the varied diet? Yeah, and routine lab work gives you these things, always glucose, take a look at that. And so if you want to look at other things, you have to order some special tests. Yeah, no imaging, not necessary for nutrition. All right, undernutrition. And if you look at the world, and what's sad is that here in America, the richest country in the world, you have kids going to sleep hungry. And even with COVID, we had kids that didn't get a lunch because the free lunch was their lunch, and their parents, yeah. And so amazing. It's not the world has enough food right now, but it's just the distribution is among the haves and not the have-nots. So Yeah, and if you look at worldwide, of course, see the darker colors here, you see where there is cases of a lot of undernutrition. Some of these African countries we talk about, half the, I don't even know that it's a large number. I'm forgetting right now. What percentage goes to is undernourished? And we think about in America the overnourishment, the buffets, and the all the ability to get all this food, and so it's just crazy to think about people in two different locations having such different experiences. Yeah. So undernutrition, you're going to get once you have fewer calories than you burn a day, you're going to be losing weight, and you'll see you can have severe wasting, and it can damage. Talk about anorexia, damage all these organs. You're going to see it's once your body starts breaking down your proteins, you're causing permanent damage. Yeah. Yes, and of course, thirst. Water is a nutrient too. All right, so if you are protein deficient, if your diet is just gruel made with rice and you don't get any protein with it, you're not going to be able to make protein in your blood, these albumins, right? And you know what happens because I've talked about this. If you don't have enough albumins in your blood, you're going to have edema because that water will leave, but it won't be sucked back because osmosis is not sucking it back if there's no whole bunch of albumin in your blood. So you'll have, when you see the distended belly in starvation, it's not they're full, it's that they have ascites, is that the fluid is gathered in the peritoneal cavity. Yeah. And if you look, you can see your carbs are burned immediately. You know, well, your ATP is burned within seconds, and then you start burning your glucose, and then you start burning fat and proteins. So as starvation goes on, your body is going to go in starvation mode and do whatever it can to exist, to survive. And it will break down what it needs to give you your brain that glucose. And it's going to be your muscles, your bones, everything. Yeah. And if you're under nutrition, you have enough proper nutrition, you're going to have your immune response is going to be depressed. So it takes good nutrition, good sleep to keep a high immune response. So yeah, you look at pictures, see pictures of the Holocaust and people being starved, and you look, you know, in some African countries and other places in the world where there's just not enough food. It just breaks your heart to see what happens just when you just don't have the calories, and your body, the muscles atrophy, your skin gets bad because you can't repair your skin. All that energy is going towards survival. So your hair, your skin, sores that don't heal. Yes, obviously irritability. Yeah. And when we look at starvation, we talk about these two. Marasmus is because you just don't get enough calories. And so very thin, you can see the ribs, everything like that. This quadrilateral, should practice that one. This is really interesting. And what it is, it was thought that what you see it in is that when a baby is born, and the baby seems fine, right? And then once the kid's a couple years old or a year old and the mother's pregnant again, that new baby comes, that first kid all of a sudden pretty soon develops this distended belly and this protein deficiency. And the first kid's fine. The new kid that mom is nursing is fine. So what has happened here is that if you're getting mother's milk, you're getting protein. And then once you're kicked off, you're eating just rice. You're not getting the protein, and you are going to have a low oncotic pressure in your blood, and you're going to have proteins. You're going to have bad immune system. You're going to have muscle wasting, and you're going to have this kind of look. Yeah. So it's this thing that happens to the second kid when the new kid is born. What happens to the original kid is that this develops. So that's a lack of protein. I threw this up here for you, just looking at it. So yeah, this is deficiency in protein. Marasmus is deficiency in protein and calories. And so you can see the ribs. Here you get just a protuberant belly because it's the protein in particular that without that, this person might get enough calories because you have rice. It's pretty cheap and easy, or corn, but they're not getting the protein. Yep. Right. Very sad. So if you think to yourself, okay, this kid is going through starvation, and then you rescue him or her, and then you feed and feed, guess what? You can never reverse these effects if it's severe. You can't, because the body had broken down brain proteins and other organs to survive, and it's gone, right? So you'll see mental processes. Of course, you can't have proper puberty unless you have enough stored fat, and growth is permanently stunted. Yeah, and height is based on genetics and environment, and so some of it's genetics. But if you don't have much protein when you're growing up, you'll never reach your genetic height either. All right, this cachexia I've talked about before. This is this wasting, and this is what happens due to disease and often cancer. And you end up not wanting to eat too, but if your metabolism is going so fast, you could have a normal amount of calories that you eat, but this hypermetabolic processes, the cancer is very greedy and it uses it all. You're just going to have this wasting. So this is very common in when you see patients with end-of-life diseases and cancer especially, you see this. Just muscle wasting and weakness. The skin and hair do not look good. Diarrhea, a large spleen, lack of sensation in your extremities, and other signs. This cachexia, And cancer and chronic infection causes this mainly, this wasting, not thriving. And then, if we want to dig a little deeper here, the book digs a little deeper looking at this, and you have cytokines are given off, this is in cancer or autoimmune diseases, things like that. And it's actually going to decrease muscle protein synthesis and keeps your metabolism high, so you're burning more calories than you're taking in. And then it gets rid of activity of ones involved in fat storage. So you're going to have anorexia, you're not going to eat, so you're going to lose weight, and this is just depression and inability to feel pleasure. And so this is just a wasting you see near end of life. That's really difficult to deal with, and there's no simple solution. All right, anorexia and bulimia are going to be behaviors that are going to cause weight loss. Well, you guys are familiar with these, right? And it's really, you get this, it's a mental condition where you have this body image of yourself, and you think you're fat, and you think you have to keep losing weight. Anorexia, both of them, especially in young women, around puberty, we think that hormones are also involved, as well as it's definitely not just societal factors, thinking, you need to look like a model or something like that. It's and people talk about it you don't have control over your life, so at least you can control your food. So the thing is, with anorexia, you just restrict your diets, and you just, maybe you exercise constantly. That can happen too. And bulimia is often where you purge. Sometimes dentists will see this first, or you'll see teeth enamel from the acid, or you'll see scratches in the fingers from making them throw up. So, And disturbing looking picture there, but anorexia, even if there's intervention that's successful, and it's unfortunately not always successful, you still have a great mortality rate because just like in any starvation, you have brought your body to where it has used all of your parts for energy. And so you've gone past a point where you can repair yourself. But like I say, it's so deadly and dangerous, this anorexia, because you'll have cardiac arrhythmias, and you'll have all kinds of hormonal dehydration. All these issues are going to go on. And what causes this? We don't exactly know. It's definitely a really serious issue. So I think I've said it all here. So, all right, this failure to thrive, you'll hear that. And in the pediatric group, it means we're talking usually like babies aren't gaining weight, and They're not. You look at their weight for their age, and it's something is wrong. And so there are various causes here. You could obviously have various genetic issues, or could be a heart disease, or it could be allergies or infection. That maybe it's causing it, or exogenous things like poverty and not giving formula correctly, or you get parents that somehow think that their baby should be a vegan, and just feed it fruit. It needs protein, needs fat. And so, yeah, child abuse too. So failure to thrive in pediatric world is, a baby not growing like it should. In the geriatric population too, we're looking at same thing, but we're looking at just a decline like the cachexia, this decline where you're going to see um, uh, loss of interest in eating, even an appetite, and depression, and not taking care of yourself, social distancing. So failure to thrive in that population, you probably understand that too. All right, deficiencies or excesses in vitamins and minerals. Yeah, you need the essential vitamins and minerals. The things we talk about, vitamin and minerals, they're essential. You need them in your diet. And usually, like I say, if you eat a good enough diet, you're going to get all these. You don't have to ever think about it, right? And you can always get vitamin supplements. We overdo it with vitamin supplements as a country. But they are useful, especially looking at if you have prenatal vitamins, or if you may get pregnant, you want to get that folate and other vitamins. If you have a metabolic condition, you want this. If you're anemic, you want to make sure you have iron. So there are specific cases. When I talk about we overuse vitamins, it's just if you have a normal diet, you don't need supplemental vitamins as long as you have no other issue, right? Yeah. And you can get specific supplements too. Maybe take magnesium, might help against migraines, or iron if you're anemic. You can get all these things. They're all available. Yeah, and so we don't see a lot of vitamin deficiencies or excesses. It's not a big issue normally, right? Especially today when we fortify, we don't our food, so we put iodine in salt, we put vitamin D in milk, we enrich our flour. So we do a lot to make it difficult to have scurvy or these various diseases where occur. And like if you're out shipping sea, you get scurvy because you're not eating any citrus or anything like that. So yeah, but because there's such easy access to supplements, then you could have toxicity. Then your excesses, you have to be careful. If people are trying to, they read something online where you should take, so much zinc because it'll prevent you from getting COVID or something, and then you can have these things happen. But because it's easily accessible, you don't need a prescription for a lot of these things. A short bowel syndrome. If you have to remove a piece, like you see, this is removed all the large intestine here. You have a colon ileostomy, a bag there. And here you can see they've removed a bunch of the colon and small intestine. So any kind of short bowel syndrome can cause deficiencies because you don't have the absorption that you did if you have a longer intestine. Yep. And always when you see total parenteral nutrition is when you, through an IV, you can replace all these things. All right, alcoholics. It's a disease called beriberi they get. It's a lack of a B vitamin. The deal is if you are an alcoholic, you tend to get all your calories from alcohol. And believe me, beer is not, I love beer, but it's not, you need more in your nutrition, all right? Or you're gonna have deficiencies. And you'll see the same thing with lack of proteins in your diet. If alcoholics that, they drink a lot of alcohol, they get the calories, they don't have a good diet. And so you'll see issues of deficiencies and not enough protein, and especially these B vitamins that they're not getting. And of course you can damage your liver, which is useful, which you need in order to digest things and to have normal blood proteins. And I think you all know, if you're pregnant, do not drink alcohol, especially in the first few months. Women issues, we really think about iron deficiency because of menstruation. That every time you lose blood, you lose iron, right? Otherwise, we recycle it. And lactation as well. If you're making all this milk for this kid, you need to supplement. The kid will drain your calcium and phosphorus from your bones, and you want to make sure you get enough of that. Yeah. And of course, yeah, teratogens we talked about. Careful what you're having because it could affect the fetus. All right, as you get older, old age, interesting things happen. You often have this wasting, this failure to thrive that happens, this lack of interest, appetite in food. You have a little change in your taste buds, and so you put more salt in your soup because of that. But as you continue, you still need those nutrients. So you need to, in old age, to make sure that you're not missing anything essential. Vitamin B12 is common. You'll have a pernicious anemia will occur because as you age, the stomach epithelium just gets less and less, and so you have a less intrinsic factor that allows you to absorb B12. All right, food allergies. These are the top. There's the top 8 that are really the culprits, right? Seafood allergies, peanuts, and then wheat and soy allergies. Yeah, so I got strawberries, tomatoes there. So some of you with food allergies, I probably rang some bells there when I mentioned those. Those are the big ones. But this hyperactivity, as you remember, it's going to cause histamines to be released, causes all these effects of you could have hives, all kinds of things. And if it's very serious, you could get anaphylactic shock and you'll close your breathing and drop your blood pressure and be lethal. Yep. Food allergies is more common in children, so that means some adults grow out of these. Celiac disease, talked about this with digestion, but remember your villi just get flattened and so you have worse and worse absorption caused by gluten, which is found in wheat. Yeah. Yeah, and so you can read these. I don't need to read them for you. Looking at various symptoms of celiac disease. This is you have a skin lesion sometimes that we're not exactly sure why. But celiac disease, you destroy your lining in your intestine, and it makes you difficult to absorb your nutrients. And then, what you do about it, and you can see this gluten-free everything now, and it's kind of a selling point too in stores, etc. But yeah, it's difficult here because wheat, which has gluten, is kind of a staple here in the U.S. It's unlike rice in some other places of the world. So, and you find gluten in all kinds of things hiding. So, if you have a true gluten allergy, it is it's sometimes a challenge to eat out and to not run into it. All right. This pernicious anemia, I've talked about again. This last chapter, we're kind of summarizing things we talked about before, but this is the problem with B12, vitamin B12. And it's usually you're getting enough B12. The problem is you don't have that intrinsic factor made by your stomach that allows you to absorb B12. Indeed. So as you get older, your gastric lining regresses and you make less of it. It's a slow process because you store like a year's worth of B12 in your liver. So if you just cut out B12, you'd be okay for a while as you use that stored. But then when you run out of the stored B12, you need it for DNA synthesis to make red blood cells, especially. So this anemia, your blood cells are useless, really. And it causes death, but usually you can catch this. You can have symptoms of anemia and they'll take a look at you and say, whoa, something's off, and they'll be able to tell that. Yeah, this glossitis, this enlarged tongue, weaknesses and lack of feeling, and obviously fatigue and shortness of breath and heart issues too are involved when you're fooling with the blood cells. Yeah, and the thing is with B12, you can't take it orally because the intrinsic factor is the problem. So it'll be an intramuscular injection of B12, and that'll get into your body because in your gut, clearly that's the issue. I mean, you could not get enough B12 in your diet if you have a strange diet, but any normal diet, you get enough of it. Yeah. It's especially if you get meat. I say any normal diet, but vegans B12 is an issue because it's an animal thing. You can get spray vitamin B12 if you're a vegan and things. So, yeah. All right, looking at some deficiencies of some enzymes. If your salivary glands, for various reasons, become destroyed, damaged, and you don't make saliva, you don't make amylase, which breaks down starch in your mouth. You got other amylase in your pancreas too, but it makes it difficult to taste and to chew food without any saliva. You can imagine trying to eat a cracker with a dry mouth, right? What about your pancreas? If your pancreas is insufficient, well, one, diabetes, the part of that makes insulin and glucagon, but the exocrine part of your pancreas, you're not making digestive juices, all these enzymes, lipases, trypsin, nucleases, everything that breaks down food in your small intestine. A lot of those enzymes come from your pancreas. So you're going to have issues with digestion. You're not going to be able the fats won't be digested, proteins will go through you, and yeah. Yeah, and so you can get enzymes. They can give you enzymes if your pancreas fails at doing that. Yeah. But definitely your flatulence and abdominal distension, because you're letting things go through and your colon bacteria are working on it that you should have digested and absorbed up in the small intestine. But yeah, failure to thrive, weight loss, definitely. This is stools, fatty stools, and you're going to have deficiencies. So pancreas isn't working, you're not going to be able to digest and absorb your nutrients, right? All right, lactase. Some of you are lactose intolerant. And we normally, humans, have lactase to break down milk sugar as infants, and then we grow out of it, and as adults, we shouldn't be drinking milk, all right? But there was a mutation, we think, in Northern Europe that allowed us to still make lactase as an adult, and that spread all over. And so I drink milk and cheese, yeah. But in Asian countries and African countries, they don't have a lot of milk and cheese in their, you notice in their foods, because they don't tolerate it, because they can't break down that milk sugar and it turns just into gas, and your bacteria end up breaking it down. This is interesting that we as adults are drinking milk from another animal. We take it for granted, but it's weird because normally milk from a cow is made to feed baby cows, and here we are stealing it and drinking it. Yeah. Anyway, what can you do about it? Well, they make enzymes that you can take to help you digest. They're actually enzymes that will help digest, break down that sugar. Yep. And normally people just avoid dairy products, right? You gotta be careful to make sure you get enough calcium, but easiest just not to drink a big glass of milk if you're lactose intolerant. There's also fructose intolerance too. I never known anyone with this, but you really got to look at what this sugar is found in. You can see in certain foods, certain fruits, and more than in others. And it's the same kind of deal where you don't have the right enzyme to break down the sugar, and you become unhappy because it will pass through you and cause digestive issues. Yeah. All right, just a couple, these are called inborn errors of metabolism, but PKU is when you don't break down a particular amino acid. And it seems like no big deal, right? But it is, because untreated, you're a perfectly normal baby, but really quickly you start getting serious mental and issues with your nervous system. Yeah. So now every baby that's born in the US gets a blood test to see about PKU, because if you just recognize it and don't give the phenylalanine, you don't have any symptoms. You don't, because this just builds up if you can't break it down. Yep. And then similar thing with digesting lactose and other sugar. People are born with that too. All right, finally, wrapping up here, looking at obesity. And so again, most important nutritional disorder in the world today. In the old days, you know, when food was scarcer, it allowed you to survive. And so some groups really have genes that make them hold on to calories to get through survival. Yeah. And so we talk about BMI. I'll show you the chart in the next slide, but over 30 is obese. Okay. And 25 to 30 is overweight. So you guys can take a look at your heights and look at your weight. Let me take a look. I am not going to circle it. Oh, geez. I think this is I'm big boned. And this, again, people will criticize this as being unrealistic and that people vary in their structure. I mean, for my height, there's people in the NFL that weigh what I do, but it's a little more muscle than fat, right? So there's obviously variations. This is a rough tool, but it's easy to measure because all you need is height and weight, and you get a BMI, body mass index. Yeah. So do know over 30 is obese. So what causes obesity? Look at it's complex. Indeed, some of it is certainly genetic, and some of it is certainly environmental, right? And then there's hormones involved too. Leptin and gastrin, you guys maybe study it. Ghrelin, you guys study that. So a lot of things go into this, societal, psychological, genetics, environments, many things go into what your body weight is. But at the basic level, it's calories in versus calories out. And what's easier, to exercise more or eat less in terms of calories? Eating better is easier, because if you see how many hours you had to be on the treadmill for one Big Mac, it takes you like 5 minutes to eat a Big Mac, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. So, but both of those are important, of course, and yeah. But you can look at genetic variability and definitely see this. If you see it in a family, you have to be careful because it could be the environment. Definitely is part of the environment, but it's also definitely part genetic. And then aging, look at this. So if you eat the same, here I am when I was 23, I burned about 2,700 calories. Here I am, believe it or not. Over here, every day I use about 300 less calories. So if I eat the same, I'm going to be adding 300 calories every day, 365 days, added up, right? With aging, your metabolism slows, so you need to eat less calories. That's true. You can't just eat the same. And definitely some populations, you look at some Native Americans, only ones that we think, there was populations that lived in the desert. So they're almost like 80, 90% obese when you look at the population. Some of it is poor diets, is Western diet, and poverty is involved too. But some of it is genetics, that their ancestors had so little food during the periods of the year when there was little food that those that held on to calories survived and left more babies than didn't. So there's a strong selection for that. And it's just in today's modern society, it doesn't fit. And you end up with obesity and diabetes, all these things. Yeah. And if you're shorter, it's a little harder too. Your metabolism's down a little bit compared to a tall person. All right, yes, and so looking at what two different people think is being full, and hunger. It is subjective, right? And a lot of it, yeah. Look at this: the role of food in socialization. What are you eating for? How do you feel about fatty foods, or do you? Your parents, what kind of habits do they instill in you about eating? Did they just feed you chicken nuggets and pizza, whatever you want to eat, not worry about exercise, sit in front of a TV? Or did they was the whole family ate well, and so you were brought up eating fresh fruits and vegetables, and you guys were an active family? So some of it's not fault of your own. It's just your environment you were brought up in. It is your fault how you treat your kids and how you make them see food as something that's not necessarily a reward or something that is every social function needs to have food in it, or you can go eat in your room, and it's making food a healthy part of your life. Yeah, look at me. Yeah, some drugs and problems. All right, so and some people are looking at environmental toxins even. Definitely, and some hormones involved in our diets could be involved with obesity, but this is just beginning. And one thing I have to say is that childhood obesity is increasing greatly in the country, and that's the real issue. Is because adipose cells, they fill with fat, they empty with fat, but you make them when you're growing, and so if you are an obese child, you have a lot of fat cells. And so even as an adult, you work and you lose that weight, you still have the fat cells ready to be filled. Now, if you're a non-obese child, you have less fat cells. And so they fill up, but there's less of them to fill up. And so you don't really divide and make a whole lot more. You do, but it's mostly this filling and emptying. So that's just kind of important for it to try to avoid childhood obesity, because if you're a fat child, you are just swimming upstream your whole life to try to fight that. Yeah. Here's looking at it by states. Maybe we can take a look and see if that's, you see a lot of these southern states, high obesity. Maine looks a little worse than Vermont and New York. I see that. The western states, especially Colorado, is always up there in terms of health. I think they hike around the mountains all the time. I don't know what it is. But yeah, you see West Virginia and some southern states are the top of obesity and diabetes. All right, so treatments. First of all is knowing, making it a problem that you want to fix. And some people are like, I'm happy, eating food makes me happy, and so they deal with the health consequences, indeed, yeah. But it's really a lifestyle change. It's not a quick diet. Almost any diet works right away. You lose a lot of water weight. Turns out even a placebo works. If you tell someone that even this is a diet pill, and even if it's a sugar pill, they'll lose weight because they think it's going to work. They pay attention to what they eat. If you journal what you eat, you write it down, you eat less because you don't want to write down that Snickers at 2 a.m., right? So all these things will be helpful, but why are all these fad diets? If there's one that works, we still have it, but we keep getting new diets all the time. People jump on it, and you often, the recidivism, the going back, gaining the weight is very, very common. You can see bariatric surgery is becoming more and more common with obesity, and it works. It can definitely work. There's danger involved, and you got to live a life with eating small portions. But you can see the dramatic effects of that. And yeah, with obesity, when you get to be large enough, you can qualify in order to get this surgery because it's going to prevent health issues. But they'd like you to try to lose weight naturally first, of course. All right, finally, oh my gosh, you guys. This is 6 weeks, this particular summer course, and making these lectures. Whew. All right, finally, complications obviously to obesity are, I think they're self-evident. You guys through this course have known your life expectancy is less, your quality of life is less, you're gonna get more hypertension and diabetes and financial effects. So it has a big effect on people's lives, this obesity. And look how alarming this is. Between the 60s and 2000, we go from 13 to 31, and childhood obesity just ballooned. So definitely an issue in this country. You can click on this link. It's a good link talking about obesity today. All right, that is it. Done with this nutritional issues. And this last part of the chapter is looking at physical and chemical and looking at immunological diseases and nutritional diseases. Are kind of an overview. It's not system, but looking at kind of reviewing some things and then giving you some new things. So hope you enjoyed it. And all right, I'll talk to you guys later.